This is week 10 once again. We have week 10 part 2. We'll later have week 10 part 3. And we have someone special who used to be in Mississippi, who used to be in Ohio, who used to be, I think, in China. He started in Mississippi, his career maybe 6-7 years, moved north up to Ohio State University, the Ohio State University, where a lot of great things happen. Then he moved north again. Where'd he go? Michigan State. And if you look directionally at his career over time, he's pretty soon going to end up in Canada, and then he's going to end up in the North Pole somewhere. You know, he keeps going. He likes the colder weather, maybe because of global warming. It's not any different. But Kui Xie is a Red Cedar Distinguished Professor and Chairperson. So he left the Ohio State to Michigan State to be a chairperson, to be a distinguished Red Cedar professor in the Department of Counseling, Educational Psychology, my old domain, and special ed. He's interested in not one thing, not two things, not three things, not four things, not five. He's interested in everything. Pretty much you look at his bio, it just should say, I'm interested in stuff. And basically the litany of topics in this class are what he's interested in. So it's fair game to ask Kui anything, but you know, he's really interested in partnerships with schools and in translating research so that people can understand all the wealth of stuff that's happening out there. So he's one of the people that are really vitally needed in the world because they translate and make it adaptable, you know, for the different needs, whether it's a K-12 or higher ed or industry kind of need. He's published in all sorts of journals. He's been on many news radio shows and been interviewed many times. Just technology integration, learning environments, that's the big picture. R622 last fall with me, Bo, right? Oh, this is what 622 is all about. You know, trying to understand all the research and it's creating a eclectic overview of where we're going. So Kui, I've shared your homepage. I've shared your Google Scholar page. I've shared your LinkedIn page. I've shared your picture and many other things, and also the 10 questions that are possible with all of us. But, you know, maybe we just need to skip back to the basics and just, and I'm not going to ask all 10 questions. I'm going to have time for all of you to jump in here and go. So if you're just joining us, I did a little history of ebooks, kind of now taking a mental break and moving into part 2 tonight. Kui, can you describe aspects of your career that are really critical and pinnacle in helping us understand why you moved north from Mississippi State to Ohio State, moved north again to Michigan, and Lydia's with us, who's up in Toronto, even further north, and you might end up in Canada next. So tell us about your career path and some of the bumps and side roads that you've been on along the way, and then we'll ask more.
Thank you, Kurt, for your invitation. Hello, everyone. My name is Kui Xie. And as Kurt gave such a wonderful intro, my career path has been here and there. So I started from China. So I had a bachelor's degree in information technology, which is the educational technology in China. And then started from Central China Normal University. That's where I get my bachelor's degree from. And then I moved to University of Oklahoma. That was my first stop in the United States to pursue my PhD. And then in that particular program, I don't know, Kurt, you probably still remember Amy Bradshaw.
She was a guest in here last year. Yeah, I know Amy.
And then Shinga, and we also have so that program is a combined program with educational technology as well as educational psychology. So the degree program really shaped my research portfolio. As you can see, just like Kurt said, my research is here and there. And then, but bottom line is, I do get influence from the classic educational technology field, which study instructional design, which study technology integration, and then study learning environment. At the same time, I got influence from educational psychology, which really study how people learn with technology, problem solving, and then I get into motivation, I get into engagement. So those are some of the areas that shapes my career. And then as you can see, the dual focus that leads me to, two areas. One is ed tech, which our primary professional association, which many of you may belong, is the AECT, Association for Educational Technology and Communications and Technologies. And then at the same time, I'm also trying to establish my reputation in the educational psychology field, which belongs to APA, American Psychological Association. And then that has been quite challenging at starting point, because when I trying to go to ed tech fields, people think I'm too ed psych. I don't belong here. When I go to APA, people think, oh, you're a tech person. You don't belong here. So that was my bumps at the beginning. As a junior faculty, I was trying to navigate, the distinction between ed tech and ed psych, and then I myself get confused where I belong. And then I think it take many years for me to start to think maybe I can establish my reputation, my field in both areas. So that's where I decided to persist. So and then I moved to Mississippi. That was my first job. To be honest, I had no choice. That was my first job offer. That was actually before my dissertation was completed. So I got a job offer, and then my advisor told me, you can't decline your first offer. So I took my first offer, moved to Mississippi. That is a quite interesting place to start your life with. I grew up in a city, Wuhan, with multiple million people in one city. Mississippi is a city probably with about 30,000 people. It's a town that small. So it's quite challenging for me to be there, but I started my career there. And Ohio State, it was a great opportunity. Somehow as I was lucky, and then I applied for that position, I got in. And then that is really, I can see, if you can see my CV, that's where my career or research trajectory started to grow. And then, I've been there for 11 years. I was navigating from assistant to associate to full professor to distinguished professor there at Ohio State. So, and then after that, I've been thinking, what should I do next? So this chairperson opened up in Michigan State. It's a great program that has a degree program that's called EPAD, Educational Psychology and Educational Technology combined in one program. In terms of programmatic wise, that is a perfect fit for me as well. And then I also wanted to be a chairperson, so I'm here. So that's my career journey. It sounds like quite smooth, but it's to be honest, it's quite difficult to navigate.
Yeah, and I'll just point out that our graduates in our program don't typically get a job within the Big Ten network, which is growing now. I could count on my hands over my decades being at Indiana how many end up at Ohio State or Michigan or Purdue. Most end up at, if they do, they go to Purdue. So it's hard getting into the Big Ten, and you've gotten into two. I'm a Wisconsin person at Indiana, so I've been at two, once as a student, once as a faculty member. But to me, I'm biased. I grew up in the Midwest. The Big Ten is the best place to be of all, because they're really focused on research, but for a public good. They're not private universities. University of Michigan is somewhat private. Northwestern is private, but most are not. They're public institutions, and so they're doing good for the whole state, and they're heavily engaged in some deepest levels of research. I wonder if you might want to talk about a project or two that you took on at Ohio State before we go on and talk about Michigan and Michigan State, what your current research is. I wonder if you might enlighten us as to a project maybe that you started that you're really proud of, that was very successful, and what was it about that it made it successful, and why might my students read an article that you published about that particular project?
I would say two projects that's interrelated. So my main area of focus is to examine students' motivation and engagement in learning context that's either technology-based context or classroom-based context. So that's where the area of study I did. But I also because I was trained in that educational technology field, so I always wanted to add technology components to my research. Where one of the area I wanted to add is how I was thinking about how technology can facilitate or can augment my research capacity. So I've tapped into this data-intensive research area, which I'm kind of proud of the approach. So at Ohio State, I designed a course that it's a service course that enrolled about 1,000 students per year.
Did you do all the grading?
Well, I hire my TA to do that. I don't teach them. I manage that course. And then in that course, because I have full control of that course, I was able to design a data capturing mechanism, learning analytics data capturing, that I was able to capture fine-grained clickstream data from every single click by any students in that class. And then, so in that approach, I was able to truly analyze students' learning behavior and then mapped onto their motivation. So I was able to really understand how different types of motive drives different patterns of behavior. So that is the line of studies I started with, but then there is machine learning algorithm that I'm not really skilled at. I have to work with other people to dive into that, which prompted me to the other direction. And I study students' motivation and engagement when they may not engage in technology environment. So learning analytics is a field that everyone is quite passionate about right now. The field is geared towards that data analytics direction. But the problem of learning analytics is then it only captures students' online learning behavior. When students interact or interface with technological environment. But I trust every one of you may study in a library, may study in a coffee shop, may or just study on the couch in your home. Not necessarily interface with technology, then how can I study those phenomena with a fine-grained in-situ data source? So I started to explore another way of intensive data collection, which I call experiential sampling methods. It's the same as self-report, like we do survey studies, but it's the instrumentation of self-report that is different. So I designed an app that facilitates data collection in the moment, in the context where students are learning, maybe not with technology. So if they're reading a book, and then the app would detect that they're reading a book, and then we might prompt the students, hey, how are you doing? What are you reading? What kind of study strategy you have? And what kind of emotions you're experiencing? So that is the type of methods I'm trying to experiment. I'm still developing more nuanced methods related to that. So that gave me a new methodological advancement to study motivation and study engagement. The reason I feel I'm proud of it, trust me, it's very difficult to make innovations or create a new theory in the field of educational psychology. It's very difficult.
Very difficult. One comes up every 10 or 20 years, if that. Before you go on, can you tell us, first off, the courses that you were using, the 1,000 students in what class, and where did you get the funding to do this?
I can answer you the next question. I don't have funding to do this. I developed the course and then initiated everything myself without funding. And then the course was a course that to teach students how to learn online. it's a needed course, and then I just developed it, and then I throw it out there. It attracts about 1,000 students per year of enrollment. So my department chair was very happy, and then he started to give me TAs to teach those classes. But they did not give me much funding about it. And then, but anyway, so that method is, again, I frame that as a project I'm proud of, is because of that fine-grained data source, I am able to make newer theories in the educational psychology fields. For example, motivation. We are looking into more situational motivation perspective, which is a newer area in that area of research. Again, it's very difficult to dive into the educational psychology field because almost every theory, every area has been studied, and there's multiple theories existing already. To make innovation and then to make groundbreaking breakthrough, it's very challenging unless we have newer data sources. So I decided to create my new data source that affords me to, explore newer type of phenomena or theory or findings. I don't want to claim I have a new theory developed yet, but I'm just saying that gave me some motivation to continue in that psych field to see how I can make a contribution
Are
on.
you a
So those
programmer?
are yeah.
Are you a programmer that you program this, or?
I used to be a programmer when I was a PhD student. I used to be a multimedia specialist as an intern in a company while I was in the PhD program. But this app, I hired a programmer to do that. I think that's the best use of my time. And then that gets me at Ohio State. That's the most proud of project I have at Ohio State.
How about we move up to Michigan State? What's new? What kind of new things are you working on or hoping to work on there?
Well, I'm a department chair. I'm getting all this miscellaneous boring stuff now. I mean, this actually is it's my struggle right now. It's how to squeeze out time to keep up my research. I didn't mention in my Ohio State growth, I was able to grow to a degree that I have a team of maybe 6, 7 to 10 people work on my project, and then I was able to increase my research capacity from one person writing maybe 2 or 3 or 4 articles a year to now last year, 2023, I had 20 publications. So it's not a one person job you can do. But then I moved to Michigan State. I lost my team. I lost my infrastructure. So I'm trying to regain that that sort of infrastructure and momentum there. So there's not a lot of fancy stuff happening at Michigan State. I do have a few grant proposal that's in review. Cross fingers, they get funded. Then I can share more. I come back and share more about my Michigan State stuff.
Well, your writing strategies and publishing stayed the same because you were very successful. I should say, look up his Google Scholar Index. You'll see how successful Kui's been. Can you give my students some tips on what made you successful really early in your career? For me, it took a decade or more. I became more successful later, more lately than earlier. So what's your secret sauce? What kinds of things can they utilize to help my people, become successful writers and to publish if they want to? Some of my students, some people here are going to do an EDD, some are going to do a PhD, some are masters and they won't do either, but they still might want to write and publish somewhere. So
yeah, I mean, Kurt, I may have a similar experience like as you. I mean, not as robust as you, but if you look at my first 10 years, my research is just quite flat. It's not a lot of movement. That's when either I was a graduate student or I was assistant professor at Mississippi State. It's I was able to publish a couple of articles, maybe 3 articles a year. So that is I would call that's my first stage of my career. And then the strategy there is really you have to establish a positive value towards your own research, even if some of your studies were not highly valued by other people in your institution. You may end up with that situation. Not all institution is like Indiana, Ohio State, or Michigan State that highly value peer-reviewed, high-index publications. There are some institutions that they see a publication as a publication. They don't look at the rank. They don't look at. So I was in that situation a little bit. I felt discouraged, but then there is also going to conference and then hang out with your peers help you to establish the value of publishing. It's you really it needs to keep your own competitiveness in the market. So if you are in a situation that's R2, for example, that's a R2 school or teaching school, but I suggest thinking about your career trajectory. Do you want it to stay in the teaching school? Then that's a different direction. That's great. I mean, you excel on teaching. You develop strategies to innovate, to advance in teaching. That's perfectly fine. But if you wanted to move on to a R1 university, then you need to think about your own competitiveness on the market. Regardless of your stuff is valued or not in your current institution. So that's how I kept myself in the momentum of I need to get published and I need to continue do the work I do. At the same time, if you are landed with an institution that doesn't align with your interest, but at the same time, I really believe you need to think about how you can make contributions to where you are, regardless of if it's R2 or R1 or even a community college. You need to think they hired you, and then you need to try your best to make a contribution to either your department or your institution. Once you truly committed to your own place, you will shine. And then only at that time, you may be able to leave to be more competitive.
So Kui, I have people like Ed here who works at Dell Computer, who might be more interested in the practical outlets of his research. You're known for translating. Can you give us some examples of outlets that are not traditional outlets to translate research that might be in a level 3 kind of journal, or level 4, more practitioner oriented or more general public? What kind of forums for the general public? I think you published in The Conversation. Could you talk about that? That's something that Ed might want to take a look at, The Conversation, because that is highly read. It's highly valuable. It's open access out of Australia. So you want to talk about the article you had there and others like it?
Yes. So I started to attend to the idea of translational research when I started to work with local schools. I can share that story later on. But then I started to diversify my publication outlet. I mean, I don't want my work only being read by either a group of PhD students or people do research in the field. I wanted my research to be more influenced and then to have more impact with the field. So I started to reach out to, media outlets like a conversation. Conversation is extremely easy to tap into. There is a place. I mean, actually, conversation probably is one of the easiest place that you should look into. There is a place that you can click, says pitch my ideas. You write maybe a 50 words about what you wanted to write. But the key is publishing those media outlet is you need to attend to what the society cares about. For example, when the pandemic hit, I approached to conversation. I told them, yes, right now we're in the emergency remote learning. A lot of students will exhibit the phenomena we call procrastination. I can write a paper about how to prevent procrastination in online learning because I have research to document how to do that. So they jumped in, and then you write a proposal. Actually, the editor of conversation will write it for you. Because when we write it's more academic language, they will then translate that into a more media language. So they will co-write with you. So that is a very easy step. I mean, I wouldn't say easy, but it's a very approachable outlet to go with.
So
But
that's
you'd have to put off
in
the writing for
Canada.
that until tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Sorry.
So that's in Canada. In Australia, that's in Australia, I mean. In Canada is the evolution with 3 L's. Have you seen the evolution?
Mm-mm.
So I'll put that in the chat window here. So my students might want to look at the conversation and the evolution. There's a third one I'm trying to think of that's like those, but they're open access and it's more practical, more overview articles, but they can get thousands, tens of thousands of hits.
Yes,
You've also been on
yes.
National Public Radio with thousands of people listening to you on the. How did you get on the radio? Did they call you, or did you call the radio show to be on?
The radio I was called NPR radio because I was in Ohio. So in Ohio, there is a very interesting story developed when I was at Ohio State. So we have a online school, virtual school in Ohio called ECOT.
I was part of the early ECOT. I was in the initial year of ECOT or two. Yeah.
ECOT clearly had some financial scandal.
Oh, yeah.
So
the
that
electronic
went on
classroom of tomorrow. Yeah. The guy running it was scandalous. He was a billionaire or millionaire or whatever, but
exactly. So that gets the media attention, and then they invited me to talk about the future of e-schools.
Oh.
That's how it's relevant.
After I left, they kicked me out, all the corrupt people like me, and then they got the honest people like you in there.
Yeah. So that's NPR radio. I mean, I think it's also connected by the school because they typically each university have a place, that media outlet. They have an office that connects you with other people. Yeah.
It's interesting to see we have similar, they locked us in a room late at night and wouldn't let us come out until we came up with a curriculum for ECOT. Literally, that's what happened. We had 100 teachers with like 8 to 10 experts for a couple of days just chatting with all these teachers from Ohio.
Oh,
But
wow.
Ohio, what Indiana says is they look at Ohio for what could be done wrong in terms of K-12 schools, and then they replicate it and do it wrong in Indiana too. Michigan does it right. K-12 online learning. So Michigan, Idaho, Florida, North Carolina, and maybe Hawaii are the ones that are doing K-12 online learning in innovative, interesting ways. Florida with virtual school was one of the first ones in, and Michigan was one of the first ones in with the data. Ohio always messed up. I hate to say it, but really, and Indiana creates the program, then disbands the program the next semester or year. It's just at the K-12. Indiana's really good at the higher ed level, outstandingly good, Indiana, for tech support. But K-12, there's corruption here, and there's corruption in Ohio, but not in Michigan. That's why you went to Michigan.
I'm yet to explore in Michigan. Because I'm only been here 6 months, so it's quite new. Yeah.
So who wants to jump in with a question? I have a few more to ask, but let's maybe Vanessa or MJ or Lydia, one of you they're in the middle of the screen. I see. Yayoi, any of you want to jump in and ask a question? We got time for you. If not, anyone else want to jump in? Yeah, Ed, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question. How do you select who to do research with?
You mean partners or subjects?
Yes, partners. How do you decide who to partner with?
That's a very good question.
Especially if you've never.
Tricky question too.
If you haven't partnered with them before, and then all of a sudden it's your first time and your styles aren't the same. I was just wondering how you make that selection, or do you get a list of people with certain reputations and you know that, yes, that's who I want to work with, regardless of the topic?
So when I was more junior, more green, I would more thinking about, I wanted to do this project. I need a person from the technology. I need a person from computer science. So I would just cold approach them. And I mean, there is some success. There is some not success story. So in some cases, I was lucky, and then I was able to get connected, and then we did a couple of studies together. But at the same time, there's also nuance that you need to pay attention. Not everyone is willing to collaborate with you. So, or not everyone has the same work style as you do. So you may end up with conflicts as well. And then once you get into that situation, it's chaos. So I'm more selective in terms of choosing my collaboration partners. But when I was in a junior situation, I have less leverage, right? I'm more junior because right now I'm a full professor. I can choose people to collaborate. I'm at the stage I can. But then I think when I was junior, I did collaborate, and then I had some cases I was quite disappointed, and then I argue, I was strong, and I was trying to fight my right. But then in the later, I started to be more strategic. I was thinking, yes, so I'll collaborate with this person. It's a more senior person, of course. I'm gonna have some benefit, advantage being taken. So I would lose some part. For example, if you write a grant, be willing to let the other person be the PI, even maybe you wrote the whole thing. Because if you write the grant and then you submit, you are very much likely not get funded at all, no chance, because you just do not have the reputation to do that. Because grant writing, one is about idea, but then the other one is about who can do this work. And you really need to have a good team. So I started to kind of navigate, do I want to give up this in order to get that? Be more strategic. And then I think it became more smooth. At the beginning, I was trying to fight an equal right. I'm very honest. I'm sharing a lot of things I should not share. But anyway, that was my collaboration experience. If you don't have a lot of leverage, then be prepared to give up something that and then as a trade of your gain. Does that make sense? There's very less likely you will find an equal partner that will equally share the resources. That would be ideal. If you can find that, make that a lifetime partner.
So I've been fortunate to work with 4 people since the pandemic who are equal partners, who are just fabulous. I just got lucky. Just continue, just unbelievably lucky. Just one of those people be a godsend, be an angel sent from heaven somewhere. But I've had 4. I've been just research goes in flows. It just sometimes you look back and say, wow, but I will say, to answer your question, Ed, if there's someone you're not really sure that you'll mesh with, find a way to help that person without it taking you a lot of time. So for instance, if someone is asking you to do research with him or her, or work on a grant or work on an article, say, well, can you send me the article? Can you send me I'll give you some feedback on it. I don't have a lot of time to work on it directly, but I'll at least read it and help you in that regard. Or I'll connect you to other people, or I'll share some resources with you. So if you're not really sure if you can work well with Bo, and I don't know if I can work with Bo, so he'll send me. I'll just share some resource. I'll edit the paper, and then Bo's happy. He can get, and maybe the next time Bo has an idea, he'll come back to me. I might have more time for him, and so forth. So I typically don't ignore anyone or try not to ignore people, but there are levels of help and support that you can provide, and you can't provide extensive help to everybody who comes along and asks you for it. So you start off giving people the minimum or just above the minimum across, and then you see which ones you want to jump in and do more for, and where you'll both benefit and you'll both participate. And so you'll learn that a little bit along the way. So don't try not to say no, but still be hesitant. Still be very cautious initially, and just be a learning machine. Just look at every opportunity that come to you as if you can learn something from it. So your spirit, who you are as a human being, it's not this project with XYZ person. It's not this project with Bo. It's what you're learning from your involvement, even in a small way, from that project. everything should be a learning experience. It's not wasted if you didn't get funded. Nothing's ever, if you don't get it published, nothing's wasted because you can resubmit somewhere else. You can I find that if you resubmit articles, eventually get published somewhere. And it just might take 4 years or 5. One took me 6 years. If you're okay with that, then you have less tension in your body, less nervousness about getting everything out today or tomorrow or the next day. It will happen someday. Okay. I'm going to play basketball today and just have fun doing that. You can't be stuck on it, everything at a set time with set people and so forth. Be a little, Kui, do you want to add to what I've said there?
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, and then, you will get rejections. I mean, I just got a rejection today, but I'm not really sad anymore. That's a normal part of academia. You will get rejections. I mean, nobody gets, maybe Kurt, you get acceptance in the first round. I've never had one paper get accepted in the first submission.
I told my other class, one of my quals got to accept my first paper on social cognition and writing, got accepted, no edits in a tier 1 SSCI journal, written communication. I thought, okay, publishing's easy. It's never happened again.
I've never got a single article that was accepted in the first submission.
Yeah. I must have had 100 rejects during COVID, but I've got, tons of things published. I saw Lydia unmuted or put her video on, so I assume Lydia's got a question.
Yeah, thank you, Kurt. Thank you, Professor Xie, for your very inspiring story and how you navigated the different silos in academia and embark on this translational and interdisciplinary research. I'm currently a postdoc at University of Toronto, so I'm in the junior researcher league trying to navigate my way into assistant professor role. I guess my question is, as you I guess my story is similar to yours in the way that I also find myself interested in many different research topics. However, when you go for a tenure track position, how do you position yourself that they can still kind of know your identity as a researcher, but at the same time, you don't want to lose your own identity and what you believe in, because in the end of the day, education is an interdisciplinary field, and then we cannot just look at education and learning from one lens. And so how do you navigate that?
Before you answer, Kui, let me just say she's at Toronto. We all know Toronto is a really esteemed, as a postdoc, Ontario Institute of Education, OISE, Ontario Institute of Studies and Education, with Marlene Scardamalia, who's still there.
Wow.
And we need to bow to her. Everyone bow to Lydia. Put your arms up with me here. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Because before that, she was at some really minor little places like Harvard and like Cambridge. So her doctorate's at Cambridge, right? And you're a postdoc at Harvard, now a postdoc at Toronto. Did you do your undergrad at McGill? Where'd you do your undergrad? Was it McGill?
Yeah, I was at McGill.
Yeah, so four excellent places.
Wow, that's very impressive. So assume that you will be on tenure track market soon.
Someone will grab her. So
But first of all, I think a postdoc position, it's a perfect position to get your career started. I wish when I started my career, postdoc is never a thing in education field. There's no postdoc available at that time. People either just don't get a job or get an assistant professor somewhere. But I really think postdoc is the best time to get you some independence on your research, but not on a full load of teaching service, all that. And then you get a couple of years of full-time paid research time. I think that's the best deal you can ever get. And especially at a premium place and in a premium group. So kudos to you for being a postdoc in that institution. And then now I forgot your question.
My question is, how do you kind of position yourself for a tenure track role that like they can still recognize your distinguished field and research direction, while at the same time you're interested in many different areas? And how do you navigate that kind of siloed academia, but in the same time you believe in interdisciplinary research?
I think, everyone here probably have the same question, because you're a student and then you participated Professor X research, Professor Y's study, you publish with this and that, and then your topic tends to be everywhere. That's absolutely normal for junior scholars. But at the same time, there's something in your, that's my own experience. There's something in my heart that's tied things together. It appears to be random. You contributed this, that. But at the same time, when you analyze your own work, there must be some underlying theme that drives your studies. Even if you work with Professor X, that person's study, but you have your own take on it, right? You made a contribution in some way. I think you need to maybe analyze the work that you did and then really think about, maybe just ignore the surface, what kind of topic, what's truly in your heart that's what you are interested in. And when I did my analysis, I find a few themes, like motivation is really the theme of my studies. Even my dissertation topic is not on that topic, but then I started to analyze my studies, and then that is a central theme that I come back to. That would be your theme. And then it's very normal when people either apply for position or apply for tenure, going up for promotion, become associate professor, they would summarize their research into multiple strands. I rarely see a tenure package, even associate professor package, even a full professor package, like here's my one line of research. Most cases, I would see portfolios saying I have 3 strands of research. Here, 1, 2, 3, and then maybe a paragraph showing how these 3 things are tied together a little bit. Most people have 2 or 3 or 4 distinct lines, so it's absolutely normal as long as you can find those major lines.
I'll add to that. Everyone tries to get a through line. What's your through lines? This last couple of years, they're always asking, "What's your through?" I don't know. In some ways, I have more respect for people who don't have a through line, who are kind of exploring optional paths. But the majority of people in our field in education are going to be looking for you as this or that. They want to label you as this or that. So try and be this or that, but move beyond being this or that, if that makes any sense. Try and do one thing that you're known for, like Kui with motivation, engagement, but yet he's doing other things beyond it. So maybe your area might be AI in education, some aspect of that, but also you're doing other things. So,
Yeah, I wanted to echo Kurt's comment. This is a aha moment in a part of my life. It's when I move up for full professor promotion. I was questioned about my impact. It's too small. I only publish in educational technology journals. I publish in Computer and Education, ETR&D, British Journal of Educational Technology, which I deemed to be the most esteemed outlets in my field. And then I deemed that that's my field. But I was still challenged. That led me to reflect. Maybe, just like Kurt says, maybe we should not be refined by the field that we are in. We are indeed in a much larger field of education. We're just study the same phenomena, maybe looking at multiple lenses. There is a big debate. Are you in technology field, at tech field, or are you in at psych field? Are you in Division C? Are you in SIG IT? People keep asking those questions. But the fundamental thing that we are studying, regardless of what field you are studying the phenomena of education. Your goal is to improve teaching and learning. So I would strongly echo what Dr. Bank was saying. Don't let the field restrict you. I think I think one of the reasons Kurt gets nominated and then now a AERA fellow is because of that. His impact is now beyond the field of educational technology. He has established a reputation to influence the field of education. I think I wanted to do that too. I wanted to kind of broaden my field. So that moment when I was criticized, I was angry at the beginning, but then, of course, how can you criticize my work? I published the best journals in my field, but a few days later, I started to think that may be a good suggestion. So I started to broaden my publication outlet. I publish in teacher education, right? Probably RER. I mean, some broader fields. I think that's the way to go. But maybe as a junior faculty, you do want it to have some foundation laid, and then maybe as you grow, you need to think about how to extend your impact. Maybe don't think about you're just an ed tech person. You are an educational researcher.
When I had The World is Open book, I got a publicist, and I thought, great, my publicist is going to write all these articles for me. No, she just got me opportunities for me to write, and in all these journals. I never, ed leadership, for instance, or op-ed pieces in newspapers, and talking on NPR and all that. I always wanted to be an NPR. It was kind of cool, but finding those opportunities to translate. Everything's about translation today. And you're a good writer, Lydia. You should, translation should become relatively easy for you, and it's something you can do earlier in your career than Kui and I have done in our careers. And it's good you're asking this question. Does anyone else want to jump in here with their questions? I know Lena normally has a question by now, and she's been quiet tonight. She was one of the first ones here. Lena, did you want to jump in?
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm quiet. I'm listening carefully because I think Professor Xie's sharing was really very, very honest. I learned something that I couldn't learn from other sharing. Okay, so thank you very much, Professor Xie. And I have a question. So I noticed that your work on self-regulated learning in flipped classroom has gained a significant attention. And I'm also interested in flipped classroom. And actually, what I have done in China, in my classroom, I work in Hefei Normal University, and I use all those kind of blended teaching and flipped classroom. So I wonder, could you share some insights on the evolving challenges and opportunities in this area of research, especially during the transition to more digital learning environments? Thank you.
So that, yeah, probably you're on my Google Scholar. That became the most highly cited article of my portfolio. That is my proud doctoral student Ziru Sun's dissertation. So she did the dissertation, and of course I was her major advisor. Now she became a professor in southern Denmark there. So she's quite successful there. From her dissertation, we really looked into the phenomena of self-regulation in the flipped classroom. And then we highlighted the importance of promoting students' self-regulation of learning. Because in flipped learning, especially in the flipped learning typically has in-class activity and then versus the pre-class activity. And then in order to have a meaningful in-class activity, student needs to prepare for participate in the pre-class activity, but then that relies on students' self-regulated learning to actually get into that preparation stage. If students don't participate in the pre-class online portion, their in-class portion would not be successful. So that study is highlighting the dynamic between the pre-class and the in-class, and then how self-regulation plays an important role to prepare students for both in-class and pre-class activity. If you want to give you some generic guidance, I don't know, do you have specific area that you need to, but that's what that study is about. But then I didn't really know how does that relate to your question?
So I mean, just nowadays, a lot of digital tools, especially AI, used. People or the educators try to explore how to use these kind of things in classroom. So I just wonder, in this kind of trend or background, how about the flip? Do you have any suggestions in this research field?
Flipped classroom, when we trying to publish this, we got a lot of challenges. This article was published in maybe 2018. At that time, people don't think flipped classroom is a new thing. I mean, in distance education, when the mailing, what do you call, correspondence education occurs, people already do this flipped classroom. People always do homework, read the book before they enter the class. So it's going to be a challenge for you to frame the flipped classroom in a more theoretical, grounded way. So if you are thinking to do research in that area, you need to find what's new about the flipped classroom, specific designs, or does your design grounded in some sort of educational theory? Because that's what I'm the associate editor for Internet and Higher Education. We receive a lot of articles about flipped classroom, and then we reject most of them because most of the designs are not grounded in theory at all. They just think, oh, we did a flipped classroom, so I'm going to write about it and I'm going to publish it. So about 90% of the articles that sent to us on this topic get rejected because of that reason. So it has to be a sound design of flipped classroom based on either empirical evidence or theoretical grounding. You can't just do an experiment. So I'm going to flip my class and then write about it.
That would go in a practitioner journal, and so
Right.
there are outlets for anything. There are levels. I'm currently editing a special issue of Internet and Higher Ed with Vanessa Denon on professional development of online instructors, and we rejected all sorts of articles that don't have a theoretical grounding. MJ's got a question, but before that, Alicia wants to jump in with a comment because it relates to Lena. Alicia, you want to share your comment?
Yeah. So thank you, Dr. Xie. This talk is truly inspiring. And according to your bio, you have published extensively in leading journals in crossover fields of educational technology, educational psychology. Both these fields are challenging to me. So congratulations on this remarkable achievement. By the way, it reminds me a saying, a very popular saying nowadays, publish or perish. And, it's really hard now, right? Okay, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
So Kui, both Lena and Alicia are English professors in China, in your home country. So
Oh,
they're
excellent.
both visiting scholars here at Indiana. And are you going to be at AERA in Philadelphia?
I will, yes.
Yeah,
I'm organizing the Division C stuff. So I'm the
Right.
program chair for Div C. Yeah.
The biggest division. So Jill is my other visiting scholar from Taiwan. She'll be there. So Jill, you could attend Kui's talk.
Yeah, make sure to attend we have, just for your information, it's not public announced this year. We have the best social happy hour for that hosted for Division C. That's going to occur on Thursday. Make sure Thursday 4 to 6. Kurt, I can send you the info, but it's only Division C member only. So if you're not a Division C, but you are Kurt's friends, then you can go.
Friend of Kurt. So I am going to be with my co-author of the Tech Variety book, which many of you have downloaded free. I just found out my co-author and my newest book. Both books are free. She's coming from New Zealand. Her name's Elaine Coe with her team. So we'll come both join you there on Thursday afternoon and join the Division C. And I'll announce it to the class here. That would be great.
And Division C business meeting is on Saturday night. So that is the major event. And if you attend, probably you're going to meet almost everyone that you read about there. It's one of the big event, and then attached to a reception. So if you do go to AERA, take that as a best networking place to get to know people. That's how I get to know Kurt.
So basically, Division C would be an entire organization anywhere else but AERA. So AERA's 15,000 people a year go to the conference. And Division C is the largest group. So Kui's in charge of the largest group of the largest conference. This is no small undertaking here. And it's not only that, in traditional times, it was considered to be the most important division. I would still consider, I'm trained in educational psychology, I minored in ed tech. I would consider Division C to be the most important division of AERA because it has some of the thought leaders in the world, and so the business meeting would be a chance to meet some of those thought leaders. It really is an umbrella for a lot. I'm trying to create a AI in education SIG, and Division C people said no, we want to incorporate.
That was you? Okay.
I'm helping with him. Yeah, Glenn and I are doing that. We got 120 signatures on the petition or whatever. That was all my friends.
Oh, okay. I think Kim Lawless, I remember, I saw the conversation. I think Kim declined.
Yeah, she declined. Yeah, so unfortunately, we're not going to create the AI in education SIG, but special interest group. But MJ's been waiting patiently. MJ, you want to ask about Ed Psych, right?
Yes, thank you so much. So it's just pretty much what I wrote in the chat here is that I would love to, if you wouldn't mind sharing some sort of introductory ed psych resources. I've pretty much only been in ed tech spaces, but it's something that I've been curious about. So if there's anything you think might be good as introductory material, I'd love to hear it.
Are you thinking about books or journals? So maybe if you're interested in reading the top-notch ed psych findings, the Journal of Educational Psychology, Contemporary Educational Psychology are the two most renowned journals in the field. They're very difficult to get in a paper. I remember my first CEP paper went through like 4 rounds. Each round I have to write about 12-page single-page response to address the review comments. So Journal of Educational Psychology, and there's also a conceptual journal, so Educational Psychologist. It's a great one. So it has a lot of theoretical pieces and conceptual pieces. My friend Florence Martin just published one there on online learning engagement. So that also has some relevancy to the EdTech field. So I would start with those journals first.
I'll add to that. I was going to say the educational psychologist. When I was a grad student in ed psych, the educational psychologist didn't publish EdTech, just didn't. And not most recent, but last year they had a special issue on EdTech/ed psych, and Florence Martin and others who are in my 622 class in the fall came and talked about the article, including a professor at Michigan State, blanking on her name. She was a guest. Christine Greenhouse studies social media. And so if I send you my R622 syllabus, look at maybe week 10, has some articles that overlap ed tech and ed psych, and they do a nice job of it. It's a really great special issue, and I can get you most of those articles. That normally costs, well, through IU libraries you can get it free, but I that'd be a great place to start, because these are thoughtful pieces. It took them 3 years to publish this stuff, but yet it takes ed psych findings and puts it in ed psych with an ed psych audience. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds in some ways. I'm trying to think of more practical journals which you could just dip your toes in a little bit to find out whether there might be an APA, American Psych Association newsletter that you could subscribe to. Maybe Lydia knows of a newsletter that she could subscribe to through APA, or a website at APA that shows it shows its concepts. They were trying to create simulations and concept experiments that show on their website, so you can see positive reinforcement, negative for all sorts of things in action, kind of. And I'm not sure how far they got with that, if it still exists. Lydia or Jill, do you know of any website that we can go to that takes EdPsych content and distills it to a translational mechanism? No? Anyone? I'll try and think of more, but that at least I'll send you the 622 articles. That will be a start, and it'll be a good start. Anyone else want to comment on it? We only have time for a couple more questions, then we'll have to take a break before I finish off tonight. It's been almost an hour. We started a little bit late, so it's almost been an hour. I know more people have questions, and so anyone want to be one of the last two? We have got two people from Japan here, Yayoi and Amelia. Do we want to get the Japan connection? One of you want to jump in? It's early morning in Japan, I know. Maybe it's 9 o'clock there, right? Amelia, what time is it there? You're muted, Amelia.
And I'm muted. It's 9 o'clock here, and I've just been listening in. There's been so much great information that you shared with us that we really don't have access to any other way than listening to someone who's kind of been in the field a while, giving us hints and tips and stuff. So I really appreciate it. A lot to think about. Thank you for speaking to our class.
Thank you.
Yayoi, you want to jump in from Japan?
Professor Xie, thank you very much for inspiring talk and frank opinions. There are a lot of things that we could learn from your talk. And my question is, you said rejection is a part of publication, right? And
Right.
so, which means that you may be working on various topics at the same time. I'm just wondering how you can manage your schedule, and there are some tips for this.
Thank you.
That's
Yes,
a great
that's what
question, because I was going to ask that too. And I just want to point out, Yayoi and Amelia are both English professors in Japan. I was hanging out with during ICCE in December, or before ICCE in Western Japan. So like Lena and Alicia, Yayoi and Amelia are English. You got a lot of English professors here tonight.
excellent. Yes, I mean, I was gonna share one of my tip is, don't hang on the publications that's in review, because it takes a long time. Once you submit, the baby is gone. Move on to your next topic. Wait until you get a feedback, because it may take, I don't know, what is the longest waiting period that you had, Kurt?
3 years.
3 years, no way. 12 months would be my longest. I would give up on that journal. I would move on to next. But then it takes a long time. So if you only hang on with that publication, it's not efficient. Send it out and then move on to the next topic. And then once you get the feedback, either rejection, if it's a rejection, take the feedback and revise it, send it out, and then don't worry about it. Move on to your next. That's how you can just move on, because otherwise you keep thinking about that paper that's in review. You don't have the mental capacity to move on. I mean, once I send the article out, it's out. I don't think about it until I receive the feedback. That would be my best strategy.
Thank you very much.
How about revisionary tactics? What do you do when you revise? How do you interact with the reviewers? What tips can you give them to enhance the chances of them accepting your revisions? I do some things that do help. I know they help. What are things that you do that help?
Thank you. So first of all, when you submit a manuscript in the first round, your best hope is a major revision. If you get a major revision back, take that as a good news. As long as you're not rejected or desk rejected or rejected, you are in the game. So the reviewers, and especially the editors, is interested to see a revision. That is the best news for you. So take that. Well, my strategy when I first read the reviews, I tend to glance it through and then I tend to not read it because you're gonna be upset regardless of what the reviews are. So you will be upset in the first day and then don't respond. Don't do anything. Anything you do could be considered a stupid response. So don't respond right away and take the response, read it in the next few days. You will find the review, especially the long critical reviews, they're very long. Think about the reviewers really spend time on their own time. They're free. They are voluntary to read your work and then give you the suggestions. And then they spend a lot of time helping you to improve the quality of your work. If you take that as a positive attitude, your response will have that positive energy in it. If you take the gesture, how can you criticize my work? You are right. You are criticizing all the opinion that you wrote is nonsense. Then you will have a negative energy in your response. So that was my best tip is really appreciate the reviews. Indeed, you should appreciate the reviewers' reviews because as an editor, I know how difficult it is to find the reviews, especially find the reviews that writes long, critical reviews back to you. They spend hours reading your work. Again, free, voluntary, right? So why do they do that? They trying to keep the academia in a good quality. Secondly, they trying to improve the quality of your work. So appreciate their work. And then I typically address every single question in a positive way. I try to meet their needs. Unless there's conflicts, so maybe reviewer A says remove this, reviewer B says add this, then you have to decide. But I always trying to meet their needs. Unless I can't. If I can't, then I fight quite hard. So then that's how I get the 12-page single page. I have a review response that's longer than my manuscript. So I wrote very thorough responses one at a time. If I agree with them, I would write very detailed response, not just say, hey, I addressed it, see page 12. And then I also elaborate how I addressed it, what are the theoretical opinions of how I addressed it. So take it very sincerely to address their feedback. That sort of attitude and energy would really return. I mean, that's my strategy. Really, you need to put a positive spin into your response. The reviewer will read it in a positive way. You can't just keep thinking about how wonderful your work is and how can they criticize my work, and then you reject their review comments in the first place. That's not the best attitude to deal with reviews.
So be positive energy. I totally agree with that. When I wrote The World is Open book, I read Thomas Friedman's book, The World is Flat, before it, and I had my son pull out transitionary phrases in his book, because he's a journalist. He's a Pulitzer Prize winning author. Just the transitionary phrases between sentences, not the content. And I used those as stems for when I wrote my book. And I didn't know what to say between sentences. Oh, that's a nice phrasing. I wouldn't use exactly that way. Well, the same is true in responding to reviewers. You should be not using the same language in every response. You should thank them, but don't all 20 points, don't say thank you for that, thank you for that. You have to find different ways of saying thank you. So I would go to a thesaurus, and I like Collins' thesaurus. It's a British thesaurus or dictionary. Go to Collins and look up different ways to say thank you, excellent, good insight. You should also say, well, that was really great insight. Thank you for pointing it out. But don't say that on all 20 points. So you should create a cheat sheet next to you to start. You don't have to use them all, but it's at least the first couple times you're responding to reviewers, you should be thinking about how you're responding. I think the more positive, but don't be flighty or don't be fake. Don't be fake. Be sincere, as Kui said. More sincere, the better. And you don't have to respond to all 100%. I mean, say something about each comment, but you don't have to change your paper on every comment. Maybe 90%, maybe 85%, maybe 80%. You can still get published, even if you only address 9 out of 10 comments. Maybe one you can't do, but you explain why you can't do it sincerely. And that's made all the difference in the world in publishing. all the difference. Being kind to others, don't be real punchy or negative or whatever. You just thank them for doing the reviews and move on. We have time for one more question only tonight, so who wants to be the one to ask it? Jill hasn't asked anything. I'm not going to let Jill go. Bo, do you have anything? No, Jill's got her hand up, so Jill, go ahead.
Okay, I don't have question, but I really have to say I enjoy the presentation and the sharing of Dr. Xie. And I want to send my thanks to Dr. Xie and Lydia and Dr. Bong, because all of you share the thoughts and inspiration regarding the self-identity in research and the struggling chase the timeline, chase the deadline, chase everything in academia, and how to cope with the frustration and the tension in this kind of field. Yeah, I'm so touched today. Yeah, thank you so much.
I saw you laughing when he talked about revising a paper. So Jill's been working hard on 2 papers, she said, and she's got 2 publications. She's just graduated with her PhD in Taiwan and came to IU after it. So,
yeah, kind of like hiding myself in my own cave, struggling over a lot of papers and words.
I see that you're going to present in Division C, Section 3B. So I look forward to see you at AERA.
Yeah, thank you.
Sung-hee is my other visiting scholar. She's put her camera on. Sung-hee, you want the last comment or a question?
Not question. I also thank you for this last comment. Actually, last spring break, I finished my depends on my journal for 3 days. It's so hard, every line by line. So thank you for your comment. Thank you.
So Bo, you have the final comment.
I actually was going to ask a question earlier. It was kind of a piggyback question on what Ed had inquired about. And this might actually be open for both of you to respond to, Dr. Bonk, you as well. Ed had asked, just about selecting your research partners, or how do you identify those individuals? I think my wondering was, and this kind of came up in your response to that, was what ends up actually happening if something messy does end up occurring and you do not agree or see eye to eye with your research partners there?
It depends on where you are, what stage of career you are. I think both now, Kurt and I are more in this, I don't know if I call myself a senior stage, but I'm not afraid of full professors anymore. So I'm more open. I'm actually writing grants. Actually, I'm starting to involve a lot of other people now. But I have had a stage that I was very carefully navigating the politics and the tensions when I was thinking about collaboration.
Yeah, there are sometimes you have things that come up and you really weren't expecting them in terms of the partnership and people you're working on. They want to be first at everything or whatever it is. So you try and get those agreements early on. You try and be, as you get more experience, you try and elevate the people underneath you to higher positions and let them publish in the first or second or third slots, so that don't make it so competitive, make it kind of a egalitarian, and make it sort of democratic, make it sort of high energy, that you're all in this, you're all gaining from it in some ways. And so that kinds of, those tensions will dissipate, and try and ask early on, what are you hoping to get from this project? What do you want to get? What's your goals? How can I help you reach those goals, so that those misconceptions don't come up later? But I had one early in my career, my first 3 years. It was a huge, I jumped into someone else's project, and we had some misunderstandings, which actually caused me to leave West Virginia and come to Indiana. I said I could tell someone else the whole story later on, but it was not a good scene in terms of the people. the first team right after getting my PhD. I landed at West Virginia. I jumped in on a team. So avoid other people's projects, OPPs. Do what you want to do when you can do them, and then avoid some of those tensions that can come up. You want to do some other people's, but don't want to be your first project, be someone else's project. I made that mistake, and it cost me 3 years of my academic career.
Well, I agree with Kurt. I think be generous when you are collaborating with others. Of course, everybody wants to take parts of the project, right? I also, Kurt, you reminded me, I think it's important to set up expectations somewhere, if possible, early stage. And I actually now I run my research lab. Every single paper that we develop, I somehow in the early stage I need to bring the elephant in the room to the table for a discussion. Let's talk about authorship. Who's going to be the first? Who's going to be the second? It needs to be discussed. It cannot be guessed. If we are guessing authorship, people will have different expectation. Eventually, we need to put people in a list, and I think it needs to be discussed somewhere. So I am the person who always bring that to the table in my lab, and then this is the paper. Let's talk about authorship. There's gonna be some awkwardness in the moment, but once that's passed, we have the expectation, then we move on. That's how I organize my team to do research.
Well, Kui, you've been full of insights, knowledge, experiences, optimism, genuineness, and kindness tonight. We've all benefited from that. We'll continue to benefit from that in reading your research and finding out what's going on at Michigan State in the coming years under your leadership. Great people at Michigan State, always have been. It's one of the peer institutions to Indiana and to Wisconsin, always ranked very high for global education, ranked very high for the intersection of ed tech and ed psych. My first advisor's husband went there. His name is Patrick Dixon. You might run into that name. And my current podcast partners were both at Michigan State. Punya Mishra and Young Zhao were both at MSU and loved being at MSU. So I know a lot about MSU. I spoke in there once and was on the campus, in the campus hotel, and loved the little river, kind of like our little river here in Indiana. It's a great place, and we're delighted and to have you with us tonight, and hopefully again sometime in the future. Let's give Kui a round of applause and put a little in the chat window a thank you to him tonight. And I am going to stop the recording here. We'll still be on. But I'm going to stop the recording. Week 10, Part 2, R678, Spring of 2024 with Kui Xie at Michigan State. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.